Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. We're delving into some pretty intense cosmic energy this time around. We're going to be taking a look at Lorenzo's Karmic Astrology, and specifically for Leos during this upcoming full moon and lunar eclipse in Virgo. And let me tell you, Lorenzo, uh, he definitely doesn't disappoint when it comes to intensity.
Oh, yeah. No, he does not. Lorenzo's style is very direct. I mean, almost confrontational at times. He really uses astrology and tarot to kind of deliver these like potent wake-up calls.
Yeah.
And his predictions do have a reputation for being incredibly accurate, even if, they're not always what people want to hear.
No sugarcoating with Lorenzo.
Absolutely not.
And for Leos, this lunation on March 14th, I mean, it seems to be a particularly pivotal moment. Lorenzo calls it a cosmic ultimatum.
Mm-hmm.
So what exactly does he mean by that?
Well, Lorenzo says this full moon and lunar eclipse is going to hit Leos right where it counts, their self-worth and their personal resources. He's basically saying there's no escaping this energy. Leos are going to have to confront any financial or emotional baggage they've been avoiding.
Buckle up, Leos, because it sounds like things are about to get real.
Yeah.
So where do we start with this Karmic Astrology report? What are the big themes that Lorenzo is highlighting here?
Well, he dives right into the core impact of this lunation for Leos, and it's pretty intense. He writes, this full moon and lunar eclipse slams into the realm of personal resources and self-worth for you, Leo. It's shining a colossal spotlight on how you handle your income, your belongings, and, most importantly, your confidence. If you've been dodging the truth about money habits or undervaluing yourself, prepare for the layers to peel back.
Everything's coming to the surface.
Yeah.
No more hiding
Exactly.
from those uncomfortable truths about money or self-esteem. It's interesting that Lorenzo connects those two things so directly. Is that typical in astrology?
Absolutely. The second house in astrology, which is being activated by this lunation, is all about our values, our possessions and how we see ourselves in relation to those things. So it makes sense that Lorenzo would really emphasize this link between self-worth and finances.
Okay, so we've got this intense spotlight shining on Leo's deepest insecurities and financial habits. What happens next?
Well, Lorenzo doesn't hold back, that's for sure. He writes, the time for denial is over. Illusions will be exposed, and you either confront the mess or get dragged down by it. Yes or no? Yes, you must face your financial and emotional baggage head on right now, and no, you cannot afford to wait. This is a cosmic ultimatum, plain and simple.
Well, he really drives that point home. It's not a suggestion.
Yeah.
It's like a cosmic command.
It is.
To face reality.
Yes.
And this sense of urgency, I mean, it continues as he moves into the next section of his report, which is called Hidden Drives Erupt. What are these hidden drives and why are they erupting now?
Well, Lorenzo explains it like this. A subtle yet forceful alignment from your private realm lights the fuse on your buried impulses. This corner of your psyche doesn't do polite requests. It kicks open the door and demands release.
So it sounds like those deep-seated desires, fears, frustrations that Leos have been suppressing, they're about to burst out into the open. What does that look like in real life?
Well, he warns about potential outbursts, especially if anger or spiritual nudges have been ignored. He says, think of it as a wake-up call. Keep running from your own shadow, and it will chase you into a corner.
Oh, that sounds intense. Is there a way for Leos to navigate this energy without having a meltdown?
Well, he suggests embracing those hidden drives, understanding what's fueling them, and then using that energy to kind of move forward. He writes, embrace it instead. Understand what fuels you beneath the surface, and you'll harness a tidal wave of motivation to push forward.
So it's about turning that raw, like primal energy into something productive.
Yeah.
Using it to fuel your goals.
Right.
That's a pretty interesting perspective. What else does Lorenzo have in store for Leos during this lunation?
Well, things don't let up just yet. He goes on to describe a collision with restraint, which sounds pretty challenging.
Let's hear it. What kind of restraint is he talking about?
He explains it as like a cosmic reality check, almost like a drill sergeant yelling, grow up or shut up. He writes, across the way, a stern energy linked to big life lessons hovers in your zone of shared intensity and secrets. It's like a cosmic drill sergeant yelling, grow up or shut up. This tension forces you to confront debts, literal or emotional, power dynamics in your closest bonds, and whether you've learned a damn thing from your past mistakes.
So it's about facing those karmic debts, whether they're financial obligations or unresolved issues in relationships. It sounds like Leos are being called to take responsibility for their actions and the impact that they've had on others.
Exactly. And he's very clear that these confrontations, they can't be avoided any longer. The energy of this lunation is going to force those issues to the surface.
This is all pretty heavy stuff. But earlier you mentioned something about a surprise green light for Leos. Does Lorenzo offer any good news amidst all this intensity?
He does. In the midst of all this karmic reckoning, he throws in this intriguing possibility for sudden breakthroughs, particularly in Leos' careers or their public image.
Okay, tell me more. Leos could definitely use a bit of good news right now.
Absolutely. So he writes, on a more supportive note, there's an electrifying flow from the domain of public achievement and career breakthroughs. This cosmic nudge can hurl you into the spotlight, especially if you've done the work. Opportunities can appear out of nowhere, letting you leap from behind the scenes into center stage.
That's amazing. So even with all this intensity, there's a potential for Leos to shine and achieve their goals. But I'm guessing there's a catch, right?
There is. Lorenzo adds a crucial caveat. He says, but remember, you only benefit if you've sorted out your foundation. If not, that spotlight simply reveals the cracks you hoped nobody would notice.
It's like being handed a megaphone when your message is still a jumbled mess. It's a reminder that any external success is going to be short-lived if Leos haven't done the inner work first.
Exactly. It all goes back to that theme of confronting your shadows and taking responsibility for your life. Lorenzo's making it very clear that there are no shortcuts on this path.
Okay, so we've got this potential for sudden breakthroughs, but only if the groundwork has been laid. What else is in store for Leos during this full moon and lunar eclipse?
Well, Lorenzo goes on to describe what he calls the fog of temptation. And he warns that this energy can create illusions, especially around intimacy and transformation.
Okay, so this sounds like the classic trap of getting lost in fantasy or wishful thinking. What's the danger here?
Well, he warns that this energy can make it really tempting to delay tough decisions or to stay in situations that are no longer serving you. He says, another force of confusion swirls in the realm of deep merging and transformation, mirroring illusions around intimacy, soul-level bonds, or even spiritual escapism. It can hypnotize you into thinking you can delay or dodge a tough decision. You can't.
So the message is clear. Don't get seduced by those easy outs. Don't go for the quick fixes. This lunation is about facing reality head-on, even if it's uncomfortable.
Exactly. And he emphasizes the importance of honesty, especially in relationships. He writes, this moment is about severing the lies you tell yourself, especially in relationships or secret dealings. Real talk. If you don't crack the whip on your own fantasies, you'll drown in them.
It sounds like a wake-up call for Leos to get real with themselves and the people around them.
Yeah.
No more pretending.
Right.
No more sweeping things under the rug. This is about radical honesty and taking ownership of your choices.
Absolutely. And this leads us to one of the most pivotal points in his report. The choice between karmic release or repeat.
Okay, this sounds like a turning point. What are the options here?
He frames it as a stark choice,
Yeah.
evolve or remain stuck. He writes, finally, there's a direct link pulling you back to old patterns around money and self-worth, practically screaming, haven't you learned this lesson yet? If you're clinging to outdated approaches or toxic comfort zones, this eclipse shatters your safety net. The question is, do you let go and evolve or stay trapped and watch your life stall?
Wow. So it sounds like this lunation is really pushing Leos to make a decision about what kind of life they want to create. Do they want to keep repeating those same old patterns? Or are they ready to break free and step into a new chapter?
Right. And Lorenzo's very clear that there's no middle ground here. He says, the honest answer is that you're either going to break free, no half measures, or stay chained to bad habits. The cosmos isn't offering middle ground.
This is definitely a time for Leos to get real with themselves and make some tough decisions. It sounds like a lot to process.
It is. And we've only just scratched the surface of Lorenzo's analysis. He goes on to explain the specific astrological aspects in tarot symbolism that are influencing this lunation. And believe me, it gets even more intense.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground already.
Yeah.
And it definitely sounds like Leos are in for a wild ride during this full moon and lunar eclipse.
Yeah.
I think we need a moment to absorb all of this before we dive into the specifics of the astrological alignments.
I agree. Let's take a short break, and then we'll come back and unpack the rest of Lorenzo's Karmic Astrology report.
So we've explored some of the overarching themes of Lorenzo's report for Leos during this full moon and lunar eclipse. And he's painting a pretty intense picture. Karmic reckoning and a cosmic demand for honesty and growth.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like Leos are being pushed to a major turning point here. But I'm curious to hear more about the specifics. So how does Lorenzo actually use astrology and tarot to support these predictions?
Well, he starts by highlighting the date of the full moon and lunar eclipse, March 14th, and its connection to the Ten of Cups tarot card.
What's the significance of that card? I'm not super familiar with tarot. Well, the Ten of Cups is often associated with emotional fulfillment, harmony, and, a sense of completion. But Lorenzo, he adds an interesting twist. He writes, March 14th, Ten of Cups, symbolizes the pursuit of heartfelt fulfillment and emotional harmony. On this date, that dreamlike sense of completion rams straight into raw reality. If your personal life or finances are out of whack, you'll feel the tension bubble up.
So it's like the universe is holding up this image of perfect happiness and then saying, okay, now compare that to your actual life. I can see how that would create some tension.
Exactly. And then he layers in the symbolism of the full moon, the lunar eclipse, and the astrological placements, creating this multi-dimensional picture of what's happening cosmically. He writes, full moon and lunar eclipse, high priestess, in Virgo, 10 of pentacles, in the second house, the devil.
Okay, that's a lot to unpack. Where do we even begin?
Well, he starts by connecting the full moon and lunar eclipse to the High Priestess Tarot card, which is all about secrets, hidden knowledge, and intuition. And Lorenzo suggests that this eclipse is going to blast those secrets out into the open.
So no more hiding from the truth. It's all coming to light.
Right. And then he brings in the energy of Virgo, which he links to the Ten of Pentacles. And this card, it represents material stability, long-term planning, and building a legacy. Lorenzo suggests that Virgo's influence is going to force Leos to take a hard look at their practical affairs and ask themselves if their habits are supporting their long-term goals.
So it's not just about emotional drama. It's about getting real, about finances, resources, and creating a stable foundation for the future.
Exactly. And then, to top it all off, he connects this lunation to the second house, which in astrology represents our values, possessions, and self-worth, and links it to the Devil Tarot card.
I'm sensing a theme here with the Devil card. We've seen it pop up a few times already.
Yes, and it's not a coincidence. Lorenzo uses the Devil card to represent those things that keep us trapped, whether it's addiction to material possessions, fear-based thinking, or toxic patterns in relationships.
So he's saying that this lunation is going to expose those shadows, those things that are holding Leos back from their true potential.
Exactly. And he sums it up with this stark warning. He says, key takeaway. This is the cosmic alarm clock for your finances and self-esteem. Wake up or remain chained.
Okay, well, consider that alarm clock blaring. Lorenzo is definitely not mincing words here. So we've got this powerful combination of the High Priestess, the Ten of Pentacles, and the Devil, all converging in the second house. What does that actually mean for Leos on a day-to-day level? How is this energy going to play out in their lives?
Well, that's where the specific astrological aspects come into play. And Lorenzo breaks down each alignment and its karmic implications. And he starts with the sextile between the moon and Mars.
What exactly is a sextile, and why is it important?
Well, in astrology, a sextile is an angle of 60 degrees between two planets, and it's generally considered a harmonious aspect. It suggests opportunities for growth and collaboration, but Lorenzo points out that even these positive alignments, they can bring challenges.
Okay, so it's not all sunshine and roses, even with the sextile. What's the potential shadow side of this aspect?
Well, Lorenzo explains it like this. He writes, sextile to Mars, the Tower, in Cancer, the Chariot, in the 12th house, the Hanged Man.
All right, now we're getting into the astrological weeds. Can you break that down for me? What do all those symbols represent?
Of course. So he starts by connecting Mars, the planet of action and drive, to the Tower Tarot card. The Tower is often associated with sudden upheaval, breakthroughs, and, the shattering of old structures. So right away, we see this sense of disruptive energy.
It sounds like things are about to get shaken up.
Yes. And Lorenzo adds that this Martian energy is playing out in Cancer, the sign of the crab, which he links to the Chariot Tarot card. And the Chariot represents willpower, determination, and the ability to control our emotions.
So it's like Leos are being given this surge of energy and drive, but they need to learn how to harness it constructively. Otherwise, it could lead to like impulsive actions or emotional outbursts.
Exactly. And to make things even more complex, all of this is happening in the 12th house, which is associated with our subconscious, hidden realms, and those things we tend to avoid or repress. And Lorenzo connects this house to the Hanged Man Tarot card, which represents surrender, letting go, and seeing things from a new perspective.
Okay, so we've got this potent combination of the Tower, the Chariot, and the Hanged Man, all swirling around in Leos' subconscious. What does that mean for them on a practical level?
Well, Lorenzo suggests that this aspect is going to bring up a lot of subconscious material, forcing Leos to confront those buried emotions, fears, or desires that they've been trying to ignore. He writes, interpretation. A sextile is usually harmonious, but here it feels like a quiet fuse. Inner forces, anger, old wounds, deep passions rise to the surface, giving you a shot at release. If you keep pretending everything is fine, you'll create your own personal tower event.
So it's like those repressed emotions, they're going to find a way out whether Leos like it or not.
Right. And Lorenzo offers a choice. Either confront those shadows consciously and use that energy to fuel positive change, or risk having those repressed emotions explode outward in a destructive way.
He definitely doesn't sugarcoat the potential consequences. So it's like the sextile is offering an opportunity for healing and release, but Leos need to be proactive and willing to do the inner work.
Exactly. And then Lorenzo moves on to the next aspect, which brings a whole new set of challenges, the opposition between the moon and Saturn.
I've heard that oppositions can be pretty intense in astrology. What does this one signify for Leos?
Yeah. Well, oppositions, they create tension, and they often force us to confront those areas where we're out of balance. And this particular opposition, according to Lorenzo, is going to bring some serious karmic lessons. He writes, opposition to Saturn, the world, and Pisces, the moon, in the 8th house, death.
Okay, so we've got Saturn, the world, Pisces, the moon, the 8th house, and the death card, all playing a part in this opposition. I'm starting to feel overwhelmed just thinking about it. Can you break it down for me? Where do we even begin with all of that?
Let's start with Saturn, the planet of discipline, structure, and responsibility. Lorenzo connects Saturn to the World Tarot card, which represents completion, fulfillment, and the ending of a cycle. So right away, we see this theme of endings, closure, and facing the consequences of our actions.
So it's like Saturn is here to say, time to grow up, time to take responsibility for your life.
Exactly. And this Saturnian energy is playing out in Pisces, the sign of the fish, which is associated with empathy, compassion, and spirituality. But Pisces can also be prone to escapism, illusion, and blurring boundaries.
So it's like there's a potential conflict here between Saturn's need for structure and responsibility and Pisces' tendency to kind of drift off into fantasy land.
Right. And to complicate matters further, this opposition is happening in the 8th house, which is one of the most intense and transformative areas of the astrological chart. The 8th house rules over shared resources, intimacy, death, and rebirth. And Lorenzo links this house to the death card, which, as we've discussed, represents transformation, endings, and letting go of the old to make way for the new.
Okay, so we've got Saturn's reality check combined with Pisces' tendency towards illusion, all playing out in the realm of death and transformation. This is definitely getting heavy. What does Lorenzo say about how this opposition is going to affect Leos?
Well, he explains it like this. He says, interpretation. Oppositions create tension. This one forces you to handle unfinished business regarding debts, monetary or emotional, power struggles, or taboo topics. Saturn here is the cosmic principle demanding that you face the consequences of your past. You want to cling to your old approach to money or intimacy, good luck. A forced transformation is on your doorstep.
It sounds like there's no escaping this energy. Leos are going to have to confront those uncomfortable truths about their past choices and the impact that they've had on others.
Right. And he emphasizes that this is not a time for denial or avoidance. He says, yes, you either evolve or face repetitive heartbreak. No, you can't skirt these responsibilities. It's karmic, not optional.
Wow. Lorenzo's definitely not holding back. He's laying it all out there.
Yeah.
So this opposition between the moon and Saturn seems to be highlighting those areas where Leos have been avoiding responsibility, especially in their relationships and finances. It sounds like a time for some serious soul searching.
It is, and this is just one of the many aspects that Lorenzo analyzes in his report. We've still got more planetary alignments and tarot symbolism to unpack, and it only gets more intense from here.
I'm both intrigued and a little terrified to hear what else he has to say. But before we dive into the next aspect, I think we need another moment to let all of this sink in. It's a lot to process. All right, so we're back, and we're ready to dive into the final part of Lorenzo's Karmic Astrology report for Leos during this very intense full moon and lunar eclipse. I mean, so far we've explored themes of, karmic reckoning, facing financial realities, and the need for radical honesty in relationships. What else does Lorenzo have in store for us?
Well, we've covered some of the more challenging aspects, but now we're moving into an alignment that offers a little bit of relief, a potential for breakthroughs amidst all this intensity.
Okay, that sounds promising. Leo's going to definitely use some good news right now. What kind of breakthrough are we talking about?
Well, Lorenzo describes a trine between the moon and Uranus, which he says can bring sudden shifts and unexpected opportunities.
Okay, remind me, what's a trine again?
Right, so a trine is an angle of 120 degrees between two planets, and it's generally considered a harmonious and supportive aspect. It suggests a flow of energy that can bring ease, creativity, and good fortune. But as we've seen with Lorenzo's interpretations, even the positive aspects can have their challenges.
Right, he's not one to sugarcoat things. So how does Lorenzo interpret this trine between the moon and Uranus?
Well, he explains it like this. Trine to Uranus, the Fool, in Taurus, the Hierophant, in the 10th house, Judgment.
Okay, there's a lot going on there. Let's break it down. What's the connection between Uranus and the Fool?
Right, so Uranus is the planet of revolution, innovation, and unexpected change. It's the
Yeah.
planet that shakes things up, breaks down old structures and kind of pushes us outside our comfort zones. And the Fool Tarot card, it represents that same energy of taking a leap of faith, embracing the unknown, and trusting that something better awaits on the other side.
So this trine has the potential to bring some exciting and unexpected changes to Leo's lives. What role do Taurus and the Hierophant play in this?
Okay, so Taurus is the sign of the bull, known for its grounded, practical, and sensual nature. It's all about stability, security, and building a solid foundation. And the Hierophant Tarot card, it represents tradition, structure, and following established rules and systems.
So we have this clash between Uranus's revolutionary energy and Taurus's desire for stability.
Yeah.
That sounds like a recipe for some inner conflict.
It can be. But Lorenzo suggests that this conflict can also lead to breakthroughs, especially in Leos's careers or public image. He writes, interpretation. Trines are blessings, but that doesn't always mean comfort. It means a jolt of freedom can catapult you toward career opportunities or a major life upgrade if you're willing to break from stale routines.
So it's about finding a balance between honoring your need for security and being willing to take risks and embrace new possibilities. What about the 10th house and the Judgment card? How do they factor into it?
Right. So the 10th house in astrology is associated with our career, our public image, and our sense of purpose in the world. And the Judgment card represents a time of reckoning, a call to awaken to our true potential and step into our higher calling.
So this trine is really highlighting Leo's career paths and their role in the world. What's the overall message here?
Well, Lorenzo suggests that this trine offers a unique opportunity for Leos to break free from limiting beliefs, outdated structures, or career paths that no longer align with their soul's purpose. He says, here's your chance to rewrite your public image or professional path in a way that's more authentic and radical. Yes, it's an open door to step out of your comfort zone. No, you don't get to remain passive, or your stagnation will become painfully obvious.
It's like the universe is saying, here's your chance to shine, but you have to be willing to take a risk and step outside your comfort zone.
Exactly. And then Lorenzo moves on to another opposition, this time between the moon and Neptune, which brings a different kind of challenge.
Okay, tell me about this one. Neptune's energy can be a little bit tricky, right?
Yeah, it can be. Neptune is the planet of dreams, illusions, spirituality, and compassion. It's the planet that dissolves boundaries and allows us to connect with something greater than ourselves. But it can also lead to escapism, confusion, and a blurring of reality.
It's like a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
What does Lorenzo say about this opposition between the moon and Neptune for Leos?
Well, he explains it like this. Opposition to Neptune, the hanged man, in Pisces, the moon, in the 8th house, death.
Okay, we've got a lot of familiar symbols here. The hanged man, Pisces, the moon, the 8th house, and the death card. How does Lorenzo connect all of these to this opposition?
Right. So he starts by associating Neptune with the hanged man, which represents a time of surrender, letting go, and seeing things from a new perspective. But he also cautions that this can be a time of, confusion and escapism where we may feel stuck or lost in our own illusions.
It's like a warning to be mindful of where we're placing our faith and to avoid getting lost in fantasies or wishful thinking.
Exactly. And this energy is intensified by the fact that Neptune is in Pisces, its home sign. And Pisces is all about empathy, compassion, and merging with something greater than ourselves. But it can also be prone to delusion, self-sacrifice, and a blurring of boundaries.
There's a real need for discernment here to distinguish between genuine intuition and wishful thinking.
Right. And as if that weren't enough, this opposition is happening in the eighth house, which we've already discussed as being associated with death, transformation, shared resources, and intimacy. Lorenzo suggests that this opposition can bring up, intense emotional experiences and challenges around intimacy and shared resources.
A pressure cooker of emotions and karmic lessons. What's the overall message for Leos with this opposition?
Well, he warns against getting lost in illusions, especially those related to finances, relationships, or spiritual pursuits. He says, interpretation, another opposition, another confrontation with illusions, particularly about shared finances, intimacy, or emotional entanglements. Neptune begs you to see a bigger, more spiritual truth, but it can also lure you into denial. Don't let illusions about it'll all just work out sabotage real transformation.
It's about being honest with ourselves about the changes that need to be made, even if those changes are painful or require us to let go of something that we've been clinging to.
Exactly. And then Lorenzo moves on to the final set of aspects, which involve the north and south nodes of the moon.
Okay, remind me what those represent again.
Right. So the north node symbolizes our soul's purpose, the direction we're meant to grow towards in this lifetime.
Right.
It's like our compass pointing us toward our highest potential. And the south node represents our karmic past, those ingrained patterns and habits that we tend to fall back on, even if they no longer serve us.
So in this lunation, the moon is opposing both the north and south nodes, creating a tension between our past and our future. That sounds like a pretty powerful dynamic.
It is. And Lorenzo describes the opposition to the north node like this. Opposition to the north node, the star, in Pisces, the moon, in the eighth house, death. He connects the north node to the star card, which represents hope, healing, and finding our way back to our true selves.
So there's this sense that Leos are being called to embrace their soul's purpose and step into a path of healing and transformation.
Right. But the opposition from the moon suggests that this path may not be easy. There may be emotional baggage or karmic patterns that need to be released before Leos can fully embrace their potential. He writes, interpretation. You are literally squaring off with your own future path here. The cosmos is asking, are you going to step into your destiny of healing, deep transformation, and raw honesty? Or are you going to maintain your illusions, clinging to comfort that suffocates real progress?
So it's a choice between clinging to the familiar, even if it's painful, or taking a leap of faith and trusting that something better awaits on the other side.
Exactly. And then he describes the conjunction to the south node. Conjunction to the south node. The devil in Virgo, the hermit. In the second house, the devil. As you can see, the devil card appears twice here, highlighting those karmic patterns and self-sabotaging behaviors that can keep Leo stuck.
Wow, that's a strong emphasis on the shadow side.
Yeah.
What does Lorenzo say about how Leos can navigate this energy?
Well, he suggests that this conjunction is a time to get real with ourselves about those patterns and to make a conscious effort to break free from their grip. He says, interpretation. A conjunction intensifies everything. You're face to face with old patterns around money, self-worth, or how you deal with the physical world. This is the karmic highlight reel. All your typical coping mechanisms are glaring at you, asking if you're ready to break free or if you'll keep letting them run the show.
So it's about taking responsibility for our choices and making a conscious decision to choose a different path. What's Lorenzo's final message for Leos in this report?
He concludes with this powerful call to action. Brutal conclusion. Yes or no? Yes, you must tackle the ugly truths around finances, self-worth, intimate bonds, and personal illusions now. You've been pinned in every corner of your chart. The message is loud and inescapable. No, there's no gentle fallback, or maybe next time. This full moon and eclipse cycle is the cosmic siren screaming for action. He then summarizes the reasons for this urgency, stating why. Each aspect, sextile, opposition, trine drills the same point. If you keep playing small or naive, you'll keep hitting the same brick walls. You're either transforming or stagnating. There's no middle ground.
Wow. Lorenzo's message is definitely not for the faint of heart. It's intense, it's challenging, but it's also incredibly empowering.
Yeah, it is. He's essentially saying, wake up, Leos. You have a choice to make. Are you going to continue to sleepwalk through life, or are you going to claim your power and create the life you truly desire?
It's a powerful reminder that we all have a choice in how we how we respond to these cosmic energies. We can either resist and suffer, or we can surrender to the process of transformation and emerge stronger and more aligned with our true selves.
Exactly. And Lorenzo leaves us with this final thought. This is a karmic turning point. The synergy of planetary forces and tarot archetypes doesn't ask politely. It demands your evolution. You can't hide behind old habits or illusions. They'll snap you back into old drama cycles. If you face them head on, you'll emerge with deeper self-worth, a more authentic path, and actual freedom. No sugarcoating. Show up for yourself or get dragged down by the very chains you refuse to break. That's the raw truth of this lunation for you, Leo. Embrace it or remain stuck. Your move.
Wow, that's a powerful message to end on. It's a reminder that this full moon and lunar eclipse is not just about Leos. It's about all of us being called to awaken to our true potential and step into a more conscious and empowered way of being. So thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Lorenzo's Karmic Astrology, and we'll see you next time.